World War II began on September 1, 1939, with the German invasion of Poland. By the time the war ended in 1945, more than 60 million people had been killed and dozens of nations were destroyed. The ability of democracy to sustain and survive a direct attack had been put to the test and proven. Across the globe, the decade of the 1930s had been a time of great unrest. As economic depression resulted in widespread despair, some nations fell under the control of totalitarian leaders. In Europe, German dictator Adolf Hitler and his Italian counterpart, Benito Mussolini, took advantage of the financial turmoil and promised prosperity based on military expansion. In Asia, the military-dominated government of Japan plotted a similar course. Separated from these troubles by two oceans, Americans hoped to avoid involvement in yet another overseas conflict. At the time, U.S. military ranked 17th in the world. We were hardly in a position to enter a world war, but some, including President Roosevelt, began to view events in Europe and the Pacific with increasing alarm.
Or justification of any kind, civilians, including vast numbers of women and children, are being ruthlessly murdered with bombs from the air.
At 2:50 a.m. on September 1, 1939, President Roosevelt was asleep at the White House when the phone by his bedside rang. The Germans had invaded Poland. As England and France had pledged to come to Poland's defense if Germany attacked, Roosevelt realized that a larger war was at hand. While his sympathies lay with the countries being overrun by the Axis powers, America's isolationist mood limited his freedom to respond. The country's neutrality acts prevented the sale of American weapons to warring nations. There was little he could do.
I ask this Congress for authority and for funds sufficient to manufacture additional munitions and war supplies of many kinds to be turned over to those nations which are now in actual war with aggressor nations. Our most useful and immediate role is to act as an arsenal for them as well as for ourselves. We shall send in ever-increasing numbers ships, planes, tanks, guns. That is our purpose and our pledge.
On December 7, 1941, debate over American involvement in World War II ended abruptly when Japan staged a surprise attack on Pearl Harbor, Hawaii.
This broadcast bring you this important bulletin from the United Press.
Japanese have attacked Pearl Harbor, Hawaii by air, President Roosevelt has just announced. The attack also was made on all naval and military activities on the principal island of Oahu.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan. I ask that the Congress declare that since the unprovoked and dastardly attack by Japan on Sunday, December 7th, 1941, a state of war has existed between the United States and the Japanese Empire.
The attack was part of a larger military plan to seize control of oil and other critical resources in the Pacific Rim. Japan's goal was to destroy our ability to stand in their way. 4 days later, Germany and Italy, who were allied with Japan, declared war on the United States. Roosevelt had believed for some time that Germany posed the greatest threat to America's long-term security. When Hitler and Mussolini set their war machines against the United States, Roosevelt's concerns were proven justified and his need to respond was obvious.